Hi kids, it's Mrs. Roberts. Welcome to my kitchen. I have another story for you today. And this time I decided to write history, actually historical fiction. So this was a true event that I'm writing about, but I added in some things, I added in some characters that are not real, and you'll see what I mean. So about 10 years ago, I decided with some friends to start thinking about history. We visited some places like Williamsburg and Boston and realized so much was happening in those places in the 1700s that were so important to the beginning of this nation. And so my friends and I all said, you know what? It's time to start writing about those events. And that's one of the events today that I'm writing about. Okay, so this happened to take place in Boston. This was before the Revolutionary War, but it was one of the things that led to the Revolutionary War and to the separation of England or Great Britain and the 13 colonies. Okay, and so as I read, for those of you that don't know much about history yet, it'll just be fun to watch and look at the pictures, and maybe you'll pick up something today. All right, I hope so. Oh, by the way, I also did this in rhyming form, just for something a little different. So I hope you enjoy. Here we go. This is called The Boston Tea Party, as told by P.H. Patriot Pigeon. And this is Patriot Pigeon. P.H. stands for Patrick Henry. And Patrick Henry was one of our early leaders that was really good at talking. So I wanted to make him our narrator, our storyteller. Okay, here we go. Hey, look, there's Patriot Pigeon sitting in that tree. Would you tell us a story, Patriot? Would you tell us one, please? Tell us how this nation became so grand. Tell us how its individuals learned to take a stand. We want to hear every story you know. We want to hear, we want to learn, we want to grow. Well, there are so many stories that I could tell of men and women that served us well. Today's story has to do with tea. It led to this country becoming free. And here we go. We have our first two little characters here. All right. And they want our P.H. Patriot Pigeon to tell a story. And so he'll be our narrator today. Here we go. Listen up. For you students in 4th grade and above, you probably will recognize a lot of the terms that I'm going to read. The 13 colonies were ruled by Great Britain in 1763. Great Britain needed to pay its war debts. Money was what they would need. They decided to tax the colonies. They said the colonists were to blame. Every official document was taxed. The Stamp Act came to fame. So here's a picture. Before we were the United States, we were just 13 colonies. And here's Patriot Pigeon. Okay, we have Great Britain here. And Great Britain is saying, we need money. And the others are saying, yeah, those colonies cost us a lot. And if they had to go all the way across the Atlantic if they wanted to work with their own colonies over there. So they were quite some distance away, okay? They needed money, and they were going to get it from the colonists. The colonists were mad. They began to protest and boycott British goods. They should have representation in England if taxed. Yes, they should. And I have a bunch of characters here. Okay, now remember, England was far, far away, and yet they were taxing the colonists. So the colonists got upset. We don't like these taxes. And when you boycott, kids, that just means that you're not going to buy from Great Britain anymore, any of their stuff. We'll make our own stuff, okay? And that's what the colonists started doing. And so she's saying, don't buy things that come from Great Britain. And this guy says, who will look out for our rights in Great Britain? And he says, we need representation. So the British shouldn't have been taxing the colonists without someone over there to negotiate for the colonists. Well, in 1767, the British taxed some more, taxing paint, lead, paper, and tea, all things that were bought in a store. The British called these the Townshend Acts. The tea-loving colonists then agreed these taxes were outrageous and were mad all over again. All right, so here they are, guys. Great Britain says, let's tax some more. And of course, they're going to tax the colonies. And if you're not sure, kids, taxes means when you buy something and it says it's $1, it's usually like $1.08. But the British were taxing higher than they should have been. Okay, they were adding money onto every purchase like that we mentioned. And there was no representation in England to say, no, we shouldn't tax that much. And so the colonists were mad. It says, please, no more taxes. Because every time they went to the store, it was costing them more and more. I think I'd be mad too. Colonists started arguing with British soldiers. Great Britain said, okay, we'll not tax paint, lead, and paper. But the tax on tea must stay. The arguing continued. Things were getting pretty rough. Great Britain decided to send more troops. They said, that's enough. These true events in Boston helped the colonists to see that their treatment was not fair. From Great Britain, they must be free. Okay, so if you take a look, no more taxes. Okay, because they're tired of spending so much money without someone representing them. And then here came more troops, and they started arguing with each other and kind of like fighting a bit. And so here they are back in Great Britain. We're tired of those colonists complaining about taxes. Yeah, we better send more troops. And that's what King George decided to do. Big mistake. He's going to tell those colonists that they need to be quiet about taxes. The great patriot Samuel Adams knew in their fight to be free, they could not pause. He knew that taxation and troops would give the 13 colonies a joint cause. Samuel started to make great patriotic speeches that stirred the colonists' emotions and imagination. He organized groups called the Sons of Liberty that secretly talked about liberation. Most importantly, he reminded the colonists that the colonies were facing oppression. They were being taxed without representation. I've got Patriot Pigeon here. He's saying, That's Samuel Adams. That's a picture of him. Okay, and you can see right here, Patriot Pigeon is saying, they met at the Old South Meeting House, and everyone here is saying, shh, we must free ourselves from Britain. And so everybody's saying, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so they're deciding, now that Great Britain is sending all those extra troops, that things were just going to get worse. Okay, the fighting would get worse. And so now they've decided we need to separate from Great Britain. Okay, we don't belong with them anymore. They don't believe in us. In 1773, the British sent several ships. They were from the East India Company. The ships were on their way to Boston, and they were full of tea. The colonists felt things had gotten out of hand. These ships would soon be in Boston Harbor and ready to land. Now remember, the colonists has decided to boycott everything British, including tea. And this guy says, we have tea. But will the colonists buy it? No, because the British are taxing it. Not going to buy it. 3 shiploads of tea. When the ships arrived in Boston, the governor wanted the tea tax paid. The colonists said, no, we will not pay the tax. A decision needed to be made. The ship's tea needed to be unloaded. What could Governor Hutchinson do? He demanded it be off the ship by December 17th, and all taxes paid too. We've got here's Patriot Pigeon telling the story. He says, that's Governor Hutchinson. And he's saying, Governor Hutchinson is saying, unload that tea. And the colonists are saying, no, don't. Meanwhile, 3 ships are coming into harbor. Let's see what happens. Will the colonists get their way and the ships go back to England? Or will the ships be unloaded and the colonists forced to pay taxes? Let's find out. On the night of December 16th, some colonists and Samuel Adams met. They decided it was time to stand up for their rights. The time and place was set. We've got this right here, guys. He's saying, now is the time. The tea tax is unfair. Let's get rid of that tea. The group disguised themselves as Mohawk Indians and boarded all 3 ships. With axes in hand, the colonists broke open boxes. The tea inside, overboard, it was flipped. Oh my gosh. So you can see they all dressed up as Indians. They disguised themselves so they wouldn't be found out who they were, okay, because they didn't want to be arrested. So they broke open all the tea boxes and threw it overboard instead of paying the tax, okay, that was going to be forced on them. Oh no. Were they really Indians? No, they were just dressed up as Indians. The colonists had made their point. Boston Harbor was full of tea. The world soon learned about taxation without representation. The Indians had made history. This led to a revolution. defiance was at hand. The Boston Tea Party showed colonists could take a stand. And this ends my story for today. It tells how people, true and brave, made a nation along the way, with faith and hope and principles high. This nation of ours began to thrive. The end. But that's not actually the end of the story, guys. What happened as an epilogue to this story right here was that they actually ended up closing down Boston Harbor. I mean, the British. They closed down Boston Harbor, and they were very harsh with all the colonists that lived there because they were so mad about the attack on the ship with the tea being thrown overboard. And as Samuel Adams predicted, because the British were so harsh with them and closed down their harbor, they were going hungry, that other colonies started getting together, sending them food, and it created a common cause so that not just Massachusetts was against the British. All 13 colonies started to go against the British, and it eventually led to a revolution, which created the United States of America. And here we are today. So, and I have some other stories. I want to start writing about history for you guys. So if you like this, I will go ahead and do some more stories. All right, kids, listen, I had a lot of fun, as usual, writing these stories. And in this one in particular, because Patriot Pigeon will be in some more of my historical fiction stories that I want to put together. All right. It was really great reading to you, kids. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I will be reading to you soon. Bye-bye.